Time to get this party started. Let me look in the chat to see if anyone is here. If you're joining me, I want to welcome you to the masterclass. Today we're going to be talking about the three-part AI playbook to scale your agency. So I hope you are as excited as I am. All right, thank you for joining me today. Go ahead and put in the chat if you can see the chat. Let me know where you're joining from, as well as if you can hear me okay. Type a Y in the chat, just so I know everything is functioning properly here. Where you're joining from, let me take a look here. Okay, I'm looking at the chat here, but if you don't know where the chat is, it should be at the right side of your screen, bottom of your screen, and just type a Y if you can hear me or see me, and all is well. I will go ahead and proceed with the training. I want to thank you for joining me today. My name is Aldreama Harper, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the three-part AI playbook to scale your agency. So, if you actually have an agency, or if you have a podcast, or if you are a service based entrepreneur and you provide services, just type a Y in the chat, and I would love to know what you are doing. Let me take a look at, let's see here. Okay. And so, what we're going to be doing here today is we're going to be talking about how you can scale your agency or scale your podcast, scale your business. All of the things that we're going to be talking about do apply to all of those areas. Allison is here from NYC. Thank you for joining me, Allison. All right, Allison. It's normal, Allison. All right, great to have you. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the training. And so I'm super excited. Then Yinky is here. Thank you, Yinky. It's okay. Thank you. All right. All right. That way you know this is not AI. I am actually live making all of these mistakes here today. So I want to thank you for joining me today. All right. I am just a little bit of introduction, just so you know. If this is your first time joining me, my name is Aldreama Harper. People call me Dream, and I love it. And so I'm going to just be sharing a little bit on how you can scale your agency, your podcast, or your service based business. And so this is going to be a three-part AI playbook. So we're going to talk about that first. And then toward the end, I'm going to answer some questions. I have looked at the questions that you all have submitted to me. So I'm going to answer those unless they just came in, or if you want to ask it live in the chat. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the training here. All right. So, all right, one of my quotes, I don't know if I got this from someone or if this is something that I kind of came up because I saw it somewhere or something, but one of my core beliefs is that, a lot of people have said or say that content is king. And I believe that content is king, but I also believe that operations is the kingdom. Okay. Operations is the kingdom. And so, you can be doing a whole lot of things, but if your operations and your back office is not, tight, then there's going to be some problems. Scaling is going to be an issue. And so that's why I believe that operations is the kingdom. All right. So a little bit about me. So again, my name is Aldreama Harper. I help faith-driven coaches and service providers to launch and automate and systemize, areas of their business and podcasts that fuels your business. So if you have a podcast, or if you're an agency, maybe that's your business, This is going to be for you because we're going to be talking about operations and how to scale it. And because we want you to fuel your business with your podcast, and if this is you, then I am speaking to you because I want you to do this without the tech overwhelm or the burnout. Okay. Now, a little bit about my background. So, back in 2003, I actually launched a professional organizing business. And so, and even before that, I've always been in the productivity space. And so this really kind of comes natural to me, but I also made a lot of mistakes in those areas, not realizing how important operations and systems and processes and all of those things were to one's business. Even in my organizing business, I made a lot of those mistakes. So I used to go out and help, you know, it was residential at the time. I was helping residential clients, but I used to always go out and help clients to organize their homes, organize their businesses, organize their files, and organize their operations. And then I kind of discovered that I wanted to focus a little bit more on entrepreneurs. And so then I kind of moved from going out to people's homes and offices to the virtual space, and I started doing decluttering challenges. And so in those decluttering challenges, which I started doing those virtually, I was helping people to get organized in their business, helping them with systems and processes and things like that. And it didn't matter what kind of business they had. It was, it could have been any type of business, but I really enjoy helping coaches, consultants, and service based business because I can identify with that. Offering that type of business myself, I can identify with some of the bottlenecks and some of the overwhelm, even with tech. Now, back then, I wasn't using a lot of the tech that I'm using now, but I always enjoy creating those type of systems and processes to help people out of overwhelm. So that's always been the area that I have enjoyed the most. And so, but that is a little bit about me and a little bit about my background. And so hopefully you will, what we're going to be talking about today is going to be helpful for you. Also, always like to put a disclaimer there. Everything that I share is based on my opinion and my experience. And so I'm not claiming to know everything. I'm not claiming to be a guru or anything like that. I'm just basing, the things that I share on my opinion and what I've experienced in working with clients over the years. And so hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's move on here. Okay. All right. Now, let's start with the what I call the Frankenstein stack. Now, I don't know if you've heard of this term before, but the Frankenstein stack means that you are duct taping all kinds of platforms or softwares together to make everything work. And trust me, I understand because that's what I've done in the past, right? That's the thing that I've done. I've used Zoom, Slack, Trello, Google Docs, all of the things and some others you probably don't even remember, because again, I started my business way back in 2003 when some of the things that we'll be talking about today, like AI and things like that, wasn't available, not to, it wasn't in the common marketplace, right? And so there was a lot of, you know, taping systems. And one of the reasons why I did that is because I enjoy trying all the different type of platforms and softwares and things like that. But I did find it to be a little bit overwhelming because once one thing breaks, then it's like the other thing, breaks also, right? And so the Frankenstein stack is when you have all different kinds of platforms just to and you're duct taping all of those things together, and it It's really kind of borrowed from the planning community. I remember being a part of the planning community who creates planners, and which that was something that I did as well. When you had different types of, like, you had the happy planner, or you know different time management planners, and you kind of duct tape all of those things together to create the kind of planner that works for you. So that's kind of where that terminology comes from. But the thing about it is that it can be extremely exhausting when you are duct taping and trying to figure out all of those different types of platforms and how they work, how they're working, and things like that. It can be overwhelming. And so you can actually waste 3, 4, 5 hours just doing those things manually, right? And when I say doing those things manually, trying to figure those things out, duct taping them all together, trying to manage it, right? And as well as managing show notes for your podcast. And so I did forget to tell you this part. So I've also been a podcaster since 2003. And so I've launched 3 podcasts. And so this reminds me of before I launched my current podcast, which is the Organizedpreneur podcast. I used to write all the show notes manually, the titles, the, the everything that involved managing my podcast. I had to write them manually. I didn't have AI to help me do that, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So one of the podcasts that's out there, but with my former business partner, we did like 400 episodes. Okay, 400 plus episodes. And although we did them together, we did them on freeconferencing.com. People would call in, and then I would repurpose that content into a podcast. So, but I had to write all 400 episodes. I had to figure out the title, figure out, the content, figure out the show notes. It was a lot. And so I'm so glad now we have other tools to help us with writing show notes and descriptions and all of the things. Okay. So, and then the other part about Frankenstein stacks is when you are doing all of those things, you are acting as the ultimate bottleneck of your editing team. If you have a team. Some of you may have a team, some of you may not have a team. I personally am a solopreneur, and I am a one person business. And that has always been the desire, of mine, is to have a one person business, but also because it was never my plan to have this real huge company. Now, I do outsource things from time to time, special projects and things like that. However, I am primarily a one person business. And so that is how I operate. At different times, even as a professional organizer, I was the bottleneck in my business, in my organizing business, as well as my other businesses, which we're not going to, get into, but I've always been the bottleneck. And so I speak from experience, and I speak from experience from myself creating a job for myself, not a business, as well as other clients that I have worked with over the years. And so now I primarily work with podcasters and agencies and service based entrepreneurs who want to ensure that their business ties to their podcast. And so that's what the focus uh, is. All right. So, and the thing to remember here is that you are not running a business, the business is running you. And that's when I got into extreme overwhelm, when I was doing the same thing. I was the bottleneck. Okay. I could not scale, I could not expand. And so, because I was doing all of these things that I'm sharing with you that did not allow me to scale. All right. All right. So we're going to talk about going from volunteer admin to media CEO. And when we do that, we do not hustle, we systemize. Okay. We systemize. So here is the 3P media pipeline. So let's talk about the 3P media pipeline. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to be talking about number one, the production, the process, as well as the project, and managing all those three areas: production management, process management, and project management. These are the ways that you can stop being the bottleneck in your business and in your agency, right? And so that is and if you want to take a screenshot, feel free to take a screenshot at any time with anything that I'm sharing with you today. All right, so these are the three pillars. So let's talk about production management. This is the capture engine. Okay, so let me know if you, and just type a one in the chat if you use, or what. Let me back up. If you are a podcaster or you have an agency, you are you are producing your own podcast, or you're producing podcasts for other people, then type a one in the chat. Okay, type a one in the chat, because this pillar is going to be very important to you. So I've had clients where I've managed over the past couple of years, and so I have used a platform in which I'm using it right now. I use Riverside. And so you'll hear me talk about Riverside and tooting, giving applause and tooting the horns of Riverside, because I I have found that over the past couple of years, particularly, it has progressed in such a way that you don't even have to leave the platform. You can do all of the things in your podcast production process. The things that I love about Riverside, number one, is that it records locally, so you don't have to worry about those internet drops when your internet kind of goes in and out. It records locally, meaning it records on your actual computer, but then it uploads to the platform. So you never have those drops or those moments where, it's fuzzy or anything like that when it comes to your podcast. So, what happens with Riverside, you don't even have to leave the platform. You can do all of your pre-production, post-production, pre-production, production, and post-production inside of the platform. It is like it, and definitely has become over the years like a one-stop shop. Okay. So what I was saying as it relates to, the internet drops, because it records locally on your computer, you don't have to worry about having those fuzzy times when, the internet goes out or it doesn't, operate properly or what have you. So that is one of the things that I love about Riverside. The other thing is that you get all of the transcripts, and I'm going to look inside of the chat. If you're already using Riverside, that would be helpful to know too, because you may know some of these things already, but may not be aware of some of the things, the things, or some of the progress that Riverside has made. And so I would love to know if you already use Riverside. You can just type a one in the chat if you do. I'm going to just kind of look right now. Okay. All right. All right. Type a one in the chat. So the thing about Riverside is that it fuels your machine. Okay. It's the fuel of the machine. You can get the exact transcripts to power your entire AI driven back end. right? So other things that Riverside can do, you can do your master classes. It eliminates like Zoom. You don't even need Zoom if you are paying for a Zoom account. You don't even need it through Riverside. You can do your master classes. You can record live on other platforms. You can or go live, excuse me, on other platforms like YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. You can actually go live. You can do all of your production inside of the platform. There are so many things that it can do. And so your production, you can actually do your production management inside of Riverside. Okay, it is an all-purposing type of platform. Okay, all right. Then process management. This is where we're talking about the brain of your podcasting process, right? So as you can see here, so there are some of you that may be paying a team member, and that's okay. I'm nothing against paying a team member uh, to manually listen to a 45 minute episode and draft show notes and titles and social copy, from scratch. If you want to be less productive, do that. But if you are doing it yourself, there are ways to collapse the time. So when you're inside of the platform, it will also draft the show notes. It will also suggest titles and social clips and things like that you can put on social media, right? Now, but the key to that is being able to give it a custom prompt, what I call AI mega prompts to feed the raw Riverside transcript, the prompt, right? And so that will collapse hours of time from manual drafting and getting a generated title, show notes, clips, everything in seconds. Okay, in seconds. And so one thing, to also let you all know is that I'll be sending out that prompt so that you can actually use it and make sure I cover everything. I really got uh, distracted when that alarm went off. I thought I was going to have to go outside. Oh, yeah. So you will definitely get that. So it helps with managing the process. So there is um, production management and process management. And there are definitely ways to collapse the time. All right. And then lastly, there is project management. Now, this is your command center. So if you are doing guesting, let's just say you have guests to appear on your show, or if you are managing other people's podcast files. And so, but for that, you want an automated, streamlined process and a dashboard to be able to do that. Now you can use, Dropbox, you can use Google Drive, you can do all of those things, but the one that I use is called Northflow. And I'm going to drop a link of all of the tools that I use also. So I'm going to do that right now, just so you have, if you're looking to go and actually work and use those platforms, I'm going to drop. And in all transparency, these are my affiliate links. I don't share anything that I don't use, and I don't share it just because I use it. I share it because it actually works. Okay. So I'm going to um, put the links right inside of there. So with Northflow, you can't just click on it. I should have put the made it clickable. But anyway, just North Flow is in there, and then Riverside is also in there. So those are my links. Um, so, but anyway, so that is the command center. So what you see on the screen there is the back office there and my command center, especially if you go now, let me say this also. So Northflow is, and let me do it so that you can actually click on it here. Paste. Okay. Well, it still didn't do a clickable link. Anyway, just let me know if you have any problems getting into Northflow. And actually, it's about $19 a month, so it's very, very affordable. I use affordable products, and if you're not using Riverside, I believe it's like $30 a month, and so that's the one that I use, the plan that I have. So just wanted to share that with you. Okay, let's get back to Northflow. So, or your command center, because you can do this in other, you know, on other platforms, but it really works well when you have a way to grab the audio file, or a way to, or not just audio files, but even, documents. You're working with a client, and you are, let's say you're managing several clients, and you are looking at, you have to get their file so that you can edit it or what have you. This is a platform that is specifically designed for that. It is a visual dashboard built for media production, but I also use it for a couple of other things. I use it as my calendar, and it replaces some of the duct taping things that I was just sharing with you, are ways that that people just kind of, put together different platforms. So like if you're using Calendly, and then you're using a different platform, like, Dropbox or OneDrive or something, to actually get their files, right? So you eliminate all of the, what I have called Frankenstein, setting those things up the Frankenstein way. Okay. So, and so it is a dashboard that allows you to do off your or manage other people's podcast, right? And so it's kind of like, I equate it to Trello. Is it Trello? Yeah, Trello. Um, because I used to use it, but it's actually way more sophisticated than that. But so the other thing that you can do with Northflow is to, if you are a guest or you have guests, you can manage that process as well. You can get their bios, you can get all of their assets, and be able to, you know, create a questionnaire so that you can have them answer all the questions before they are on your podcast, right? So there's a whole lot of things that I'm not even, we don't even have time to go through all of the things that it does. So, you know, but again, you want to minimize all of those other, you know, platforms and softwares that you're using. And this is a great way to just use one. It's okay. You can't see it. Okay, hang on here. What you see on the screen now is actually Northflow, and I just put it in the chat. Um, okay, hang on. If you can see the chat, and I'll put this again, put it in the chat there. It's Riverside, and as I mentioned before, with audience questions. Okay, I got you. I got you. Okay, that's strange. Let me see here. I'm not sure why that is happening. Okay. Um, because it may be, hopefully, if maybe it may be, well, I'm not sure. Let me just say that, okay? I'm not sure why that's all you see, but it is called North Flow. Let me just say that. Okay. I don't know why that is. Okay, hang on here. Okay, all right. All right. So northflow.io, okay? Northflow.io is the, let me see if I can actually show that on this. Let's see. There we go. So now that is actually my affiliate link. And so if you want to take a picture of it, you can do that, but you can also go directly to northflow.io. All right. So was that much better, Allison? Hopefully that was helpful. All right. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. All right. All right. There's always more than one way to make this thing work, right? Okay. So, all right. So let's get back to our three pillars. So, all right. Now, so this is helpful if you are looking to recapture. These three pillars are helpful if you are looking to recapture 10 plus hours of your week and you want to eliminate the manual data entry. One of the things that I was doing before I started using or doing this particular process, one of the ways I was doing it, I was doing a spreadsheet, and that was really cumbersome. I'm not saying that I don't like spreadsheets, but I just didn't want to do all of that. So a spreadsheet works as well if you want to do manual data entry. But if you want a system and a process that works, then you definitely need to look at installing and using these platforms and remove the bottleneck. You want to remove the bottleneck because when systems are clear and automated, your team can execute I can't even say that right, the deliverables without waiting for your daily approvals. That's what was happening. So, even with other platforms, Dropbox, all of that. The North Flow platform is automated where you can, get the emails and things like that when something is done. But it definitely does eliminate a lot of the other platforms that, people use. But this is how you expand your capacity. This is because you open up more hours to do the other things. You build infrastructure, and that infrastructure has to be strong enough to comfortably handle your new capacity, your clients, right? Without breaking the bank, right? So even if you just use, let's just say, the three pillars that I was just talking about would include Riverside, okay? That is your, let me go back to the three pillars. So for production, for pre-production, post-production, pre-production, production, and post-production, you use Riverside. For the processes, you use an AI tool. Now, your AI tool, by the way, AI, if you're not using Riverside, and if you don't know, Riverside also has an area to paste your prompt inside of there to get all of your show notes the way you want it. And again, those of you who are here and are live with me, I will be sending out that prompt so that you can use it. You can use it in Claude, you can use it in, you know, ChatGPT, whatever AI tool that you use, but that is your automated brain, right? That's like your automated brain. Now, when I say brain, I don't mean it's thinking for you. I mean that it is helping you to expeditiously create the things that you need so that you don't have to focus so much energy on creating your show notes, right? And using all of that bandwidth, it will help to create the show notes, because I look at AI as a tool as a thought partner, and it's a tool. It does not think for me. It does not have a soul. And so it doesn't do all of those things, but it is a tool that you can use to help the process as well as your podcast. And then project management, you can use P media pipeline that I use to remove the bottleneck and expand capacity. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to definitely answer questions. So I want you all to just kind of hang tight. I'm going to go to some of the questions that were submitted and answer those. I just want you to know that I don't have anything for sale. Okay. I'm not selling you anything. However, if you want an opportunity to work with me and you want this to be installed in your podcasting process or in your back office operations, then you can get on my calendar and then we can have a conversation about it, and then we'll determine whether or not it's a good fit for you. So I will also put that link in the chat here, and you can do that. I do use Northflow for booking my discovery calls and my strategy sessions. Okay. Now that's a long link. All right. So let me go ahead and answer a question here that is live. In my experience, where does Northflow help do more than other programs like Asana? Now, I will say this, I've never used Asana. So I can't speak on that. I can speak on the fact that Northflow, and especially if you go to the site, if you go to northflow.io, it will, on the site, you will see what are some of the other platforms that it eliminates you having. So for me, I use it to do discovery calls. I use it to manage my calendar. I use it to manage my clients. I don't have to go back and forth via email. I can go inside of Northflow and do all of that. But again, I am not familiar with Asana. I think it's a little bit like Trello, but I don't know that for sure. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. Yeah, Trello. Yeah, it's kind of like, and I used to use it, Trello. So it's a little bit like that, but but Northflow is, in my opinion, more robust, but it does have some components like Trello. So you can move, like if you want to move the person or the client, the status, you can move it from, where they are in the process. That's one way of using Northflow. And by the way, you can actually get a free trial. You don't have to start paying. So you can see how it works without paying upfront. So it's a great tool. So yeah. Yes. So Northflow is sending out elements and organizing projects. That is absolutely correct, Allison. You have some great questions. I love those questions. Yes, absolutely. And so, all right, you are so very, very welcome. All right. So let me, okay. So you don't need another course. You don't need you just need operational restructure. And so if you are interested in working with me, then you can click on the link that I shared with you. When you get your follow-up email, I will also have that link where you can book some time with me. It's complimentary. It's just a discovery call, but you definitely will leave with a strategy. But we can also talk about, if it's a good fit for you, because you may have everything in place. You just might need to kind of tweak things a little bit. But so that is what the applying, application is all about. And there's a few questions in there that will help, to determine, will help me to determine to see what it is you need, because maybe it's just about filling in the gap between where you are now and where you're trying to go. So, and they're all complementary and custom. So there's not one size fit all kind of thing. Okay, because everybody's business and podcasts and the way agencies, everybody runs their business differently, so it'll be definitely customized. So, but I want to help you to expand your capacity and in, cut your production time. Okay. And so there's always a way that we can actually do that. All right. All right. So one of the questions that was asked, and again, they may not be current. I may not have, if you just signed up or if it was a late question that came in, I may not have it. But anyway, so one question that came in was, let's see here. Let's see. Was about audience engagement and monetization. And so I'm not sure if you're here, if you sent in that question or not. But the way I answer that is because a lot of people do send in those kind of questions about engagement and monetization. And so the first thing about that is that engagement and monetization are two different things and two different pipelines, right? Because you can't monetize an audience that is not engaged, right? So, you know, but what you can do is use, like if you're using, Spotify. By the way, I don't know if I said this or not about Riverside. Just kind of came to me as I was thinking about Spotify. You can also host your podcast inside of Spotify. I mean inside of Riverside, as well as build your website for your podcast inside of Riverside. So just in case you didn't know that, that is another feature that is definitely one thing that I love. You can pretty much do everything inside of Riverside that you can't do, inside of a lot of platforms, and distribution as well. All right, let me answer the question. So the question was about monetization and engagement. And so when it comes to driving engagement, and some of this you may already know, you can ask people to rate and review your show, right? At the end of every episode. Now, they may or may not, right? You can, that would be, one of the call to actions. Okay. You can have them, when in your show notes, of course, you can definitely put uh, ways to contact you, DM you or things like that. That's a way to kind of drive engagement, right? And you can do those things inside of your podcast show notes, right? And so now if you use Spotify, you can use polls and Q&A features inside Spotify. By the way, another shout out to Riverside. If you are hosting your podcast inside of Riverside, you can still distribute them to all of the other platforms like Spotify, Riverside, YouTube, all of those other platforms that have different, distribution points, right? So, but that is how those are just some ways that you can drive engagement. And community is another way you can drive engagement, right? Now, the monetizing piece of it, if you're talking about ads, I don't do ads, so I can't speak to that, right? So a lot of people want to know, how do I get sponsors? My go-to answer for all of that is to sponsor yourself. You sponsor yourself by talking about or making your call to action your program or your services. So that's how you sponsor yourself, because a lot of sponsors they have, a stiff criteria, for being able to sponsor, those big sponsors. They may have a heavy criteria for being able to just being a sponsor on your show, right? And if you don't have a big audience or a lot of followers or whatever, you may not fit their criteria. So that's number 2. So number 1 was, ads. I don't use ads, so I can't speak to ads. Sponsorships, I say sponsor yourself. The other thing you can do is affiliate marketing. That's one of the things that I do. That's why I share the link about Riverside as well as Northflow, because those are 2 of my affiliates, my affiliate links that I shared. And so those are the ways that, I believe that you can, monetize, your own self, your show, and your services. So that was like one of the biggest. Let's see. Okay, so Yinka, you said you do audio visual podcasts. Does Northflow? So Northflow is how you manage, but so Northflow will help you to manage those um those assets, if you will, right? So the asset would be whether it's a video podcast or it's an audio podcast. It will help you manage all of those. So yes, the answer is yes if that's what you're asking. If you so you because there was a couple of things, let me show on the screen here. So you do visual podcast, does Northflow. So if that's what you're asking, if you're asking if you can manage visual podcasts, meaning video podcasts, yes, you can manage video podcasts inside of Northflow. Let me know if that answered your question. That was a simple answer, hopefully. So yeah. Now the if some other questions came in after last night, I can actually answer those questions on an episode. So if you are not following me, I'm going to pop my link, and this way you can go, and so you see at the bottom there, if you go to theorganizedpreneur.riverside.com, that is the website that is created by Riverside, and it is literally, and I do mean literally, one click. If you're hosting your if you're hosting your podcast on Riverside, it will create your podcasting website. Thank you, Allison. I appreciate you. Anyway, so we are at the top of the hour. So I want to thank you all for joining me. I appreciate you so much. And just be on the lookout for your email where I will get a few things sent to you, your prompt, as well as some other information on how to jump on a call. All right. So that is it for now. I want to thank you for joining me. Have an amazing day.